Communication is the activity of conveying information through the exchange of thoughts, messages, or information as by speech, visuals, signals, writings, or behavior. It is the meaningful exchange of information between two or more living creatures. Communication requires a sender, a message, and a recipient. Although the receiver doesn't have to be present or aware of the sender's intent to communicate at the time of communication, thus communication can across vast distance in time and space. Communication requires that the communicating parties share an area of communicative commonality. The communication process is complete once the receiver understands the sender's message. I will discuss to you the first model of communication, Schramm's model of communication. Schramm was the forefather in the development of a basic model of communication. His model is the derivation of Shannon-Weaver transmission model of communication. The Shannon-Weaver model proposed 6 elements of communication: source, encoder, message, channel, decoder, and receiver. Schramm's 1954 model expands on this thinking by emphasizing the process of encoding and decoding the message. Schramm envisioned this process as a two-way circular communication between the sender and the receiver, where the Shannon-Weaver model is a more mathematical and technological one. Schramm incorporates the study of human behavior in the communication process. In addition to the 6 elements, Schramm has included these concepts: feedback, information that comes from the receiver to the sender and tells him how well he is doing; field of experience, an individual's beliefs, values, experiences, and learned meanings both as an individual or part of a group. Schramm suggests that the message can be complicated by different meanings learned by different people. Meanings can be denotative or connotative. Denotative meanings are common or dictionary meanings and can be roughly the same for most people. Connotative meanings are emotional or evaluative and based on personal experiences. A message can also have surface and latent meanings. Other characteristics of messages that impact communication between two individuals are intonations and pitch patterns, accents, facial expressions, quality of voice, and gestures. The successful transmission of a message depends on whether this message will be accepted over all the competing message. Schramm's model of communication also allows for the process of interpreting the message. This process is influenced by the presence of both physical and semantic noise. Schramm believed that all of these elements were important functions of communication in society. He felt that people in society need information on their environment and methods of communicating in order to make decisions. Most importantly, we need places to store, accumulate knowledge and wisdom of society. This is why we have libraries. In a library, of these elements of Schramm's communication model are useful in addressing problems with conducting a reference interview. This model provides the rationale to solve the problem presented in this project. The next model that I will present will be the Berlos communication model. Communication models have been used throughout history as a means of analyzing the components of effective communication, as well as exploring methods of improving communication on many levels. In his 1960 work, titled The Process of Communication, David Berlo quoted Aristotle saying that the prime goal of communication was persuasion, an attempt to sway other men to the speaker's point of view. Berlo's work focuses on the purpose and goals of communication before addressing his communication model. He states that the purpose of communication is fourfold. It is not logically contradictory or inconsistent with itself, behavior-centered, that is, expressed in terms of human behaviors, specific enough for us to be able to relate it to actual communication behavior, consistent with the ways in which people do communicate. Once the purpose of communication is defined, it is necessary to understand the concept of levels of independence. Berlo writes, in any communication situation, the source and the receiver are interdependent. There are 4 levels of interdependence. From the most basic to the most sophisticated and effective, it is careful to note that all levels of interdependence are used in communication to some degree. The levels are definitional, physical interdependence, which is the act of source and of receiver talking at each other, not listening or reacting to each other's message. The only function served by either is having a physical presence with which to communicate. Action-reaction interdependence, in which the source has a purpose and encodes a message or request. The receiver decodes the message, performs the interpreted task, and the source provides feedback. Interdependence of expectations is explained as communication relying on the source anticipating the receiver response, followed by adjusting the message and channel so that the message will be decoded accurately and reach the receiver as the source intends. Interaction is the goal of interdependence where the source and receiver cannot be independent and provide successful communication. Berlow's theory is not unique in using compartmentalizing communication as the way to understand to facilitate communication. According to Berlo, Aristotle asserted that there are three ingredients to communication: the person who speaks, the speech that he produces, and the person who listens. The third model of communication is the Aristotelian. Aristotle, a great philosopher, initiated the earliest mass communication model, called Aristotle's models of communication. He proposed model before 300 BC, who found the importance of audience role in communication chain in his communication model. This model is more focused on public speaking than interpersonal communication. Aristotle's model of communication is formed with five basic elements: speaker, speech, occasion, audience, and effect. Aristotle advises speakers to build speech for different audience at different time and for different effects. Speaker plays an important role in public speaking. The speaker must prepare his speech and analyze audience needs before he enters the stage. His words should influence in audience mind and persuade their thoughts towards him.